Hey everybody, Greg Hamby here, your favorite lender. Once again, we're back with the Texas Real Estate Roadshow. Today we're filming episode 8, and again, we are at Goosehead Insurance, the main office in Houston, Texas, here in the Memorial City area. Quick shout out to my favorite insurance broker, Bridget Valcone, for having us here. But I've got an awesome realtor from the Houston area. His name is Chris Case, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself. Unlike normal, Chris got into the industry kind of in a different way, not intentionally trying to be a realtor, and he knows a lot about real estate investing, and that's kind of going to be the focus of what we discuss today. Chris, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Chris Case. I got in real estate in about 2013-ish is when I started investing. I was a police officer full-time, and I just started doing it on the side. I bought one house, rented it out, and went from there. Ended up buying another house, rented it out, bought another house, rented it out, and that was about from 2013 to 2015. And then I realized I should get my license to manage my own properties. You know, I figured I was starting to learn more than most agents I was dealing with, and they were getting 3%. And I'm like, okay. And then plus on the management side, I was doing it all on my own back when Craigslist was a thing. Now you can't really use that anymore. It's all scams. So I went from Craigslist, Facebook, anything that I could to manage these properties. Decided to get my license about 2016 while I was still a full-time police officer. And then from there, it kind of shifted, where I was just planning to get my license to do my own properties, manage them just in the investment world. And I had a few people reach out to me in real estate world, in the retail world, seeing what I was doing, that wanted to buy rentals and wanted to flip houses and do stuff like that. And next thing I knew, 2017 came, and I had 13 listings, I think, at the time, and I was still working 50 hours a week, you know, was my base hours as a police officer. So I realized that was not sustainable, and you know, made my salary in a month or two and took off the belt, walked in and said, see you guys later, have fun with this, I'm out of here. So
It beats the heck out of those private security deals, right?
yeah, you know, I was working a lot of side jobs then, trying to make money. It's a hard job, especially nowadays. It was just getting worse and worse, and you know, and I realized the money was there in real estate, and I realized I knew what I was doing, and people were leaning on me, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So I just quit, went full-time, kind of more into the retail side a little bit as well, doing some of your normal resale buys and sell of people's personal houses to move into. And then, of course, I had a lot of people in the investment world that started reaching out to me to do rentals and flips. And now I kind of have a nice handful of repeat investors, and then they refer me out to some family members that do some traditional stuff. And it's been a wild ride since 2017. So
That's great.
yeah.
So this is kind of a curiosity question. How much business do you get from your former officers?
Very little.
Very little, really?
Very little. There's only a few guys that I keep in touch with, but there's a few. I just did one for a good guy, actually. I was talking to him on the phone here on my way here. I talk to him all the time. His family just inherited a property, so I helped them sell that. It was 22.5 acres out in like Brookshire. So I helped them sell that, and then I helped another good buddy just buy a house. He's still an officer. We went to the police academy and everything together. So I just helped him sell the house that I helped him buy, and then he just bought another house. So I get a few here and there, but not a ton. I mean, there's a little bit there with the guys that I still keep in touch with. Of course, there's a few good guys on the force that I still talk to on a normal basis, and you know, they'll refer me some work, but not a ton.
So what's the investment world like? So I know you probably work with investors, and you yourself are an investor, right? So and that's what got you into it. You know, do you have a focus area? Do you have areas you prefer? Do you have areas that are too far away that you just don't want to look at? I'm very curious about it.
No, I mean, anywhere within a couple hours of Houston, really, for me. Personally, most of my investor people are all Houston based, or Houston and surrounding, local. I still have a property down all the way in Victoria, if you know Victoria.
Yeah.
I still have that was actually the first house I ever bought. It was,
Really?
Yeah. It was in Victoria. I still own it. It rents great. You know, it was a house that I bought for $137,000 in 2011, and it's, you know, it was renting for, that's what got me started. That one was when I didn't even realize I was going to start investing. I bought that house, and when I decided I was going to buy it and sell it, I looked at the market of the rents on it were $1,800 a month at the time. And this was 2011. I just bought it for $137, right? The general rule of thumb nowadays is you want to rent for 1% of your purchase price. I realized I bought it for $137. $1,800 is well over the 1% rule, and I was like, okay, I'm going to put it up for rent. I had 15 calls in 2 days, and I'm like, wow, that was kind of cool and easy money. And so for me, it was, I've extended out. I owned an Airbnb that I bought. I had for 1 year all the way up on Lake Livingston. It was actually a private lake off of Lake Livingston. It was on its own little like 4-acre lake or pond, whatever you want to call it. So I've personally gone a few hours north and south of Houston, but I try to focus. Now I'm trying to consolidate more and keep them here. I sold that one up in Lake Livingston. I still have the house in Victoria, but for the most part, all my people are here, and I'm trying to consolidate now more here. But if the numbers make sense, I'll go out. I'll expand.
So when you did that, did you use Airbnb or like VRBO, or you did it yourself, or a combination?
Combination.
Okay.
So I used, and that was the hard part, is I had it on Airbnb and VRBO, and you have to cross-reference, and now I think you can link them. You can link like the calendars. So this was a couple of years ago where I had it on both of them. So, you know, it was a constant juggle of looking at it every day of what days booked on one, that I need to block out the dates on the other one. And
I assume you were personally promoting it as well?
A little bit, but not much. No, it was a cool little place on a private lake. So surprisingly, it was in the middle of nowhere, out 20 minutes from Lake Livingston. And when I first bought it, I'm like, who's gonna book this thing? You know, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And then surprisingly, I put it up, and it just instantly started booking.
Yeah.
So.
Did you and your family, did you ever go use it yourself?
Yeah, we did. It's funny, we only went one time as a family, because it was just out there. It was a small place. It was it was only 600 square feet, but it was a really cool cabin with a couple 100 square foot big, screened in patio that overlooked the lake.
Yeah.
So it was a cool place. We went out there, my family and I, one time and stayed, but for the most part, it was just an investment deal.
So you sold it. What was the appreciation like on that? I'm curious.
It was actually a very cheap property, and I made probably about 15%. It's like a 15% appreciation on it. I sold it as is, fully furnished. That's how I bought it.
But what kind of ROI so what kind of ROI did you see from the booking for the annual?
It was, so I was, like I said, it was a smaller place. It was booked, almost year-round for the whole year that I had it. But, of course, you had to block out dates for cleaners, and then cleaners couldn't get there sometimes. So
maintenance, right?
Maintenance stuff. You'd have to shut down for a couple of days because something wasn't right or whatever it was. But it was booked probably 15 to 20 days a month, given the downtime of having cleaners in there and getting it all prepped and ready for the next person.
So what was the nightly rate? I'm curious.
Nightly rate on that one was average of about $100 a night.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. All right. Did you have a mortgage or?
No, I paid cash for it.
Yeah. I was just curious. So I'm looking at that for me, right? And I know some people that have. For me, I'm looking at Galveston. It's just kind of in my head that. And I know two different investors that now have multiple properties there. One of them's real estate. Well, you know him, Cole Watkins with the Bridge Group.
Okay, yeah. I know of him. We've met. I don't know him personally.
Though, right? You're both
we're
under
in the
Jimmy,
same group.
right?
Yeah.
So.
I've been to a couple lunch and learns where he was speaking at them, and of course we high and by type thing, but we never done any business together. So.
All right. Well, maybe you will.
Yeah, I'm sure we will eventually.
I think he's on 2 or 3. I mean, he's really
he's moving and grooving
down there. And then I've got a friend that she's a realtor, and she and one of her sisters own homes in Galveston just for themselves, right?
Okay.
But her other sister and her brother-in-law, they've owned long-term rentals in Huntsville for a while.
Okay.
For years that they lease out to college students mainly, right?
I heard that's a good spot for that.
Yeah, and so in about the last 9 months, they're now, I think, buying their 8th property on the island.
Nice.
So the guy's gone crazy with it. He loves it, and he's like, "This is the best investment ever. I just love it." But so I see he has one without a mortgage, and then he has several with him, and they seem to make phenomenal money.
Yeah. Yeah, I know people that are killing it with the Airbnb game, and then, I kind of mentioned to you before we came on here, is I'm managing, a high-end one in Houston. It's, base price is $2,000 a night, up to $2,800 a night for, the main days, and then of course a little bit of premium for holidays and stuff like that. But we just listed it. We just had our first booking right away, right out the gate. We listed it 2 weeks ago, and we just had a person stay there, $2,000 a night for a couple nights, and it's kind of a really
amazing,
cool house,
right? And the way you described it, I mean, I don't know if you want to say where it is or what part of town, but
it's in Uptown. It's in the Galleria.
Okay, I could see that. And in my head, I was thinking, "Geez, is it in River Oaks or something?" I mean, why is somebody? But I realize there's more to it, right? Like an event, a venue.
Yeah,
it's a very unique property, right?
Very unique, yeah. You walk in and there's a glass wall on the side, and he used to have like a Lamborghini parked in there just on display, and then, he's got a piano, and it's a big glass wall on the back wall of the house, first and second story. There's a full gym, a full theater with, very, very state-of-the-art surround sound system, and he's got the optic lighting with the stars and shooting stars in the ceiling, and backyard with a big pool and barbecue. And
nice.
So it's a very cool house for events. We've had a lot of inquiries already for people that want to throw birthday parties or baby showers and stuff like that, or even local people, just to have, not even more so out of town people, local people that want to throw events. And then had a lady call me this morning who's coming to Houston for medical treatment. Sounds like a high net worth person that wants to book it for maybe even like 2 months. So it's a little bit of mix.
Wow.
It sounds like we'll be able to get some business professional people in, and then also the local people to throw little events and stuff like that. So
and it's interesting. It makes perfect sense, but I would not have personally thought of that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you can have one anywhere, right? There's people that are doing it with a condo downtown, right?
Right.
For somebody coming in, and I've thought about that, and I'm like, to me, and it was the first person that told me this was Cole, right? He's like, I really researched this heavily. I looked at rental properties, and he's like, Airbnb and a beach destination that's drivable,
right.
like Galveston, South Padre Island, Destin, Florida, right?
Right.
The Gulf Shores in Alabama, and it makes sense. You start thinking about it, and then I kind of started having some negative thoughts, right? People worried about the economy and inflation,
right.
and then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, okay, I think that makes those even more desirable, because
right.
all of a sudden, if somebody's concerned or backing down on their travel budget, they may not fly somewhere anymore, right? They may not
the local
go
Houston.
to the Dominican or Jamaica or Costa Rica or Mexico anymore. They're like, okay, let's save a bunch of money and drive to Florida or drive to Galveston.
Right.
What they don't realize is they're still going to spend quite a bit of money, but maybe it's less, or maybe it's in your head that you feel better about it.
Right.
But it's good for somebody wanting to invest.
Right. Yep. I think so. And I mean, the beauty of real estate, the thing that I've always liked it and have been able to, there's always plan B, plan C, plan D, right? There's always something else you can do with it, whether you turn it into a long-term rental because the short-term rental slows down with people in the traveling world, because we do enter in this recession that everyone's talking about, that dark cloud looming right now. So, I mean, turn it into a long-term rental, or do something else with it. More so, cater to, I know they have the conference center down there in Galveston. Maybe try to cater towards, business professionals still traveling, whatever it may be. That's been one of my favorite things about real estate too, is I've always been able to adapt and change with the market as things change. You never know what's going to happen, but there's always other exit strategies, which have been nice.
I'm part of Tom Ferry Coaching Client, and he talks about a lot of things, but the big event that we had for all of us in January, he repeatedly hit on that traditionally, currently, and probably forever, the best hedge against inflation is owning real estate, right? And it seems like an investment that's hard to go wrong with.
Right.
Then obviously, you probably believe that. I mean, it's changed your
whole
career and life, right?
It really has. I mean, and it's one of those things that's so funny where I've spoke about this before, where if you go up to almost anybody and you ask them, hey, have you ever thought about investing in real estate? The answer is almost 100% yes. Everybody's thought about it, right? Maybe they haven't done it, or maybe they've done one, or their mom or their dad did, or their cousin did, and they were like, yeah, and they had, you know, great experience. Then occasionally I hear people, oh, no, I don't want to because so-and-so, my cousin had a bad experience. Someone went in and rented their house and wrecked it or something. But everybody at some point, I feel like if you ask them that, has thought about it. And then if you can show them and kind of teach them, hey, look, this is how you want to structure it. This is how it can be, and these are the numbers, right? And to kind of show them my portfolio and some of my clientele, and then it opens up a door, and it's been able to, you know, it's a great little elevator pitch.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has some sort of interest, whether it's Airbnbs or whether long-term rentals or fix and flips or something to do in the investment world. Because like he said, I mean, it's really hard to go wrong as long as you're making educated risks.
Yeah.
You know, if you're
Good
taking
decisions,
educated
right?
risks, yes. So.
Or just not horrible decisions.
Right. You know, I've seen people lose money. It happens, but, you know, it's hard to lose money in this industry if you're doing it right. If you can buy right, that's where everything comes into play. You got to buy right.
That's why it's good to hire you, right?
Exactly.
Because, I mean, a person could just go try to do it on their own. As a mortgage broker, I know a lot better than that, right?
Yeah.
I know a little bit about real estate, but no way. That's what you guys do. That I'm going to personally hit you up to help me.
Hey, I'm happy. I'm ready whenever you are. So whether it's Airbnb or long-term rentals, fix and flips, to, like you said, maybe grow some quick capital with fix and flips and then roll those into some long-term Airbnb or whatever it may be.
So let's talk about those. I'm sure you help people do those. Are you doing some of those currently yourself or recently?
I do them very, very few. So the fix and flip game obviously is a lot more hands-on. It's a lot more time-consuming, dealing with contractors, dealing with permitting, dealing with all that stuff. So my stuff has always been buy and hold. I think I had nine properties at the peak, and now I've sold off a few. I owner financed one of my first properties out back in 2020, I believe, or was it 2021? I don't remember. But it was a property I bought, and then I owner financed it out. So now I have six properties right now currently. I have one under contract that I am looking to fix and flip, but for the most part, the fix and flips, I take them to my clientele that are looking for them. So, and I make my commission, right? So things come across my desk.
So it's a double win.
Right, exactly. I get to help them purchase it, make a commission, they fix it up. Just call me when you're done, right? I don't have to worry about any of the permitting, any of the contractor issues. Call me when you're done, I'll sell it and make my commission. So occasionally I will take one on and do it if it's, you know, kind of a smaller project, but for the most part I take all the fix and flips to clientele. I let them deal with that dirty work, and then I'll make my commission. So
here's a question that rolls into in my head is, do you do very many fix and holds? Like
No. So most my properties have been turnkey rentals, where I had a renter within, some of them within days. From me closing, I had a renter in a couple days. Some of them I bought with renters already in place.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, I think I've only done that twice, where I acquired with a tenant already in place. But for the most part, the last one I did, I bought it in October of last year. So I must have done the owner finance one that I sold the year previous, I think. But I bought one in October that was a referral to me, an off-market deal. Somebody brought to me that was probably one of the bigger projects. I don't do that many of them, but it was more of the lipstick. I just had to do flooring, paint, you know, some light fixtures, new mirrors. It was no heavy lifting. It was kind of, I got two separate contractors. They went in, put some lipstick on it, and then had a renter in it. I think that one was like a 30-day process. So the time I closed, took me about 30 days to rehab it, and then took me about a week or two to get a tenant in there. So, but most of my stuff have been turnkey. I'll buy, and my thing is I don't have the time. My time is much more geared towards my agency work, where I can go out and help people buy and sell and help these investors, and then if I come across a good deal that I know I can close, get a renter in there right away, and then don't look at it. So mine are long-term passive investing, I don't have the time. Like I said, I had that one Airbnb and I realized that wasn't for me. It was too time consuming.
Did you have people? Did you have a staff for that? Like somebody managing it, a maintenance person?
It was
that
100% me, except
all-
for, of course, the cleaning. I had
Except for the
I had a
cleaning.
cleaner and then a handyman. So luckily, it was a guy who was both. He did all my cleaning and he was my handyman. So he was a young guy. I think he was in his early 20s or something, just a very handy kid. And he didn't mind. He'd go out there and fish because it was on the lake. And I told him he could enjoy the house on the day, right? So
Yeah.
he'd go out there, he'd clean it and spend a couple hours and fish in the lake
Yeah.
there. And
Part of the compensation, right?
yeah.
For
so
him, it
was-
probably made it a lot more worth it.
Yeah, it
than
made it
just
worth
you
it.
paying him.
Exactly. So of course I still paid him, but
Yeah.
he was able to enjoy it, and so I had that in place. As far as the management side of leasing it or getting it booked was all through me, and all the marketing and stuff. I did all that myself. But that was still time consuming. Dealing with cross-referencing, I think I kind of hit on that with you. Was I had it on VRBO and Airbnb, so there was 2 platforms I was on. And you have to cross-reference dates when people book it on one, and it was. I realized it was something I was looking at almost daily. It mostly was daily, and that just didn't fit into my work criteria. And I looked at the numbers on renting this place long term, and where it was, the numbers didn't make sense. So I just cashed my money out, sold it, did it for a year, and it wasn't for me. It was too time consuming. So.
Yeah. So what you made off the capital gains, if you want to say, didn't sound like it was that great of an investment, but
Wasn't great.
was
no.
it worth it off your monthly returns?
Yeah, it was worth it. I mean, for a year I made decent money, but it just wasn't worth it. Yeah, it wasn't worth it in the long run. It wasn't. Had it been a higher end, that's the thing too. Like I said, it didn't lease for a ton of money. It was kind of a small little bungalow place on a lake that was a cool little getaway for Houston people and stuff like that. But it just wasn't. The money wasn't there.
So would you do it again on a higher end?
I would do it again, maybe on a higher end for sure. Yeah. It would have to be definitely geared toward more higher end, because if I'm going to be contributing, 10 hours a month or whatever it is, I need to make a higher return.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense on something so small.
Right.
But it was a good starter property to learn that process and know that, okay, I just need to change the numbers here, add a couple of zeros, and it'll make sense.
Sure.
But yeah.
So I know I told you a little bit about some of the people I know investing in Galveston, right, before the show. So the one lady, her brother-in-law, who's a doctor, right, one of the ones he's looking at, this older lady wants to get out of it, right? No mortgage on it. And she has a staff, right? She has somebody managing it, somebody cleaning it, somebody maintaining it, and the landscaper, lawn people coming by, right? And taxes and everything else in this property. And this is supposedly on the lower end. I can't remember the sales price, but high 4s, low 5, right? But I think and it's smaller, right? I think it's a 2-bedroom. But I think it is beachfront, and it's netting her $96,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good return, right?
That's pretty good return.
That's more than some people make in a year. That's maybe more than a lot of people make in a year.
Right.
But
Yeah, it's a booming market down there. I just sold a property for a couple investors that I work with. They bought it to fix it and flip it and sell it, and then we listed it, and it was a perfect little Airbnb. It was we did the drone shots where you could see the pier from the Pleasure Pier or whatever it's called down there. It was like a quarter mile from there. And, they did a great job. It was a 1,200 square foot house that was 3-bed, 2-bath. And we listed for $425, I believe. Which, again, like you said, that's kind of the lower end down there. And we had, it went quick. We went full price and had 30 showings in the first couple weeks. And 90% of those, because of that market nowadays, were people. Everybody that was showing it, I realized, were looking to buy this as an Airbnb or some sort of vacation rental property, whether they were going to use it part of the year and rent out part of the year. So it's a booming market down there. I'm wondering what's going to happen when it gets even more saturated, because it is getting very saturated, because people are telling those stories now that they're making $96,000 on a property. So I'm wondering what's going to happen when you have enough of those to bring the prices down to reality. So
it's kind of making me, even though I want to do it, make me think twice, right?
Right.
Like, am I too late to the game? Should I look in another area?
Right. And it's just one of those risks in real estate, but you can always adapt, I feel like. I mean, it's just coming up with a game plan with it,
Yeah.
but I think there will always be that. Like you said, even people are going to spend a lot of money, maybe if this recession hits and they're not going to go to Mexico or whatever it is, where they just shoot down to Galveston, where they're still going to have to pay a premium, and you're still going to have, there should still be some sort of spread on there for you to make your money. But what's that going to be when that gets even more saturated with everybody jumping into that market these days? So
my family and I, we don't usually do anything for spring break, right? This year, my wife got us an Airbnb on the Boulevard Peninsula for 4 or 5 nights. Our older kids came. Our teenager that's at home with us came. He brought like 5 friends, and they had a blast, right? It was a good time. It wasn't it wasn't beachfront. It was like 2 or 3 streets back, but you could walk there in no time. You could drive in literally no time. And it was funny, the day we were packing up and leaving, there was a guy hanging out, and then he parked nearby, and then he got closer and closer, and he finally came and asked me. He was an older guy. He said, hey, I'm a real estate appraiser, and I'm early. The lady selling this house, do you mind if I start measuring? And I said, I don't care. We're leaving, man. And so then I didn't even ask. He started showing me everything, like what he thought it was going to value at when the lady bought it and how much she paid. And she's going to get quite a bit for it, but it looked like all the appreciation on the thing was in the last 6 months to a year. I mean, she bought this thing in 2010 for like 200, and now she's gonna. He thinks it was gonna appraise at 580, 590. But he was showing me like, I mean, it barely moved for the first 5-10 years.
And of course, we've had that kind of nationwide, but even more so in those areas, with people getting saturated, with people wanting to do that. And then I went down there one day to this one. I just went down to put my sign up and stuff, and this couple was walking by. And they saw us putting it up for sale, and they asked, hey, how much is it? And we got to talking. They let them come in and take a look at the house. And they had just moved to Galveston from New York 2 years ago or something. And they were talking about their kids now were looking for potentially buying a house and getting out of New York as well. So you have a lot of those prices, not only in that area, you have some people that do want to be close to the coast that are going to live there full time, So the majority, like I said, people looking at the house were people looking at it as an investment short term. So, but that's also driven up the prices out there in Texas in general, but especially down there, some of these people that New York or California that want to be coastal are going to Galveston. So, but those numbers are pretty universal right now. Of course, people have been getting crazy appreciation. I know my house is, you get the tax statements in the mail right now, and it's almost shocking.
Yeah, so. It stinks. I was looking at mine the other day, and it said, your county appraised value has increased 36%.
Right. Yep.
From last year, and I'm like, ooh,
yeah,
that's not going to be fun.
You're right.
Come January.
Yeah. So and then of course you've got to roll that over into your rents. You got to make up that money somewhere.
Yeah.
So on my long-term rentals, of course, I'm hitting with people with some rate hikes. So it's all got to roll over. But what's going to happen in that? It's going to be an interesting thing that happens. Who knows in that short-term rental? So.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those things that you can always keep for yourself too, and you guys can block out dates and enjoy it with your family, like you said. So
that's true.
It's a cool thing with it.
I'm thinking that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
As long as it's rented out enough to at least pay for itself, right?
Right. Exactly. So that's the beauty of it. I think people need to look at the long-term game too. Real estate really is a long-term. Whether it's Airbnb or whether it's your normal long-term renters, I feel like real estate always should be looked at as a long-term investment. It should always be, because people making $96,000 right now should still be rolling that money back into a business account and holding it for down years, a recession year. That, if they're going to keep it as that, they need to still plan on this being a 20-year, minimum investment type thing.
Yeah.
I think if you look at real estate on a 20-year platform, they say it averages doubles over 20 years. So if you can roll the money in the good years and hold it in the accounts, even on my long-term rentals, same thing. There's been good years. My house in Victoria in 2013 was renting for $1,800 a month, where now it's only $1,600, right? We're 11 years or 10 years later, and it's still less than what it was, but I've rolled it into the account so that I've been able to sustain the ups and downs. So
Yeah.
that's been a very oil and gas driven market.
Yeah.
So it dropped all the way down to about $1,300 for a year or two. I think in 2016. I think that was a down year. 2017, I don't remember the year now, but it dropped all the way down several $100s under, and it's still a couple hundred under what it was almost 10 years ago. So
Yeah. Yeah, because those were good years for oil and gas the 10
Right.
years when you started. Yeah.
exactly. So right about the time I put it up, it was booming, and Victoria is very driven by that. So I had all these oil and gas people, families, and then it was also a medical thing too, which the oil and gas luckily drove up the market, and then there was people going down there on short-term medical things. So the first two tenants I had in this house, surprisingly, it's 1,300 square foot house, were doctors in their 50s. So it was a doctor and his wife, and they had two children. He was a younger doctor. I think he was actually in his 40s. And then when he moved out, it was a director of a hospital. He was like a head doctor, and both of them were on 2-year contracts. And of course, the oil and gas pushed the market up, and then I got better tenants, hopefully. I don't know they were great tenants. These doctors, they took good care of my house. They were both made, 300 plus a year, but there wasn't much to get down there.
Yeah.
So they jumped into these properties and a premium price. So I think going back to, as long as you're looking at a long term and you plan ahead for those downturns in the market, and you plan on a 20-year investment, you should be fine.
Yeah.
As long as you're not forced to sell in a down market too. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, or you get stuck without a renter or something, right?
Right, exactly. Somebody tears up your house, or my worst one was, luckily I haven't had too many bad deals, but I had a person that didn't pay rent for 5 months. So, it was what it was.
Yeah.
You roll with the punches, and that's why I plan for those accordingly. And I tell people it's like owning a trucking company, right? You can't say, oh no, an engine blew up in my truck, I didn't expect that. You have to expect it. Engines are going to blow, ACs are going to go out. In a truck, just as it would in a house, AC goes out, stuff goes out, there's $4,000. Somebody doesn't pay for 5 months, there's $6,000. So
did you know that I had a trucking company, or you
No.
just threw that out there?
No,
okay.
I didn't know that.
It was the worst experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
I've owned 5 different companies in the last 20 years, and that was the worst.
Really?
It started off good, but yeah. And that was to be expected, but things come up, and every time you're like, ouch.
Yeah, it hurts, but
It
you
hurt,
got to
especially
expect it.
when you have multiple trucks, and every now and then it'll happen to 2 or 3 at a time, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's one of my number one things, and I actually use that example all the time with people. When people are looking to get into real estate, it's funny that you say that. I had no idea. That's just the example I use, is when I get that phone call, I say, oh yeah, I was expecting this phone call. I don't say, oh shoot, I wasn't expecting that to happen. No, I'm expecting ACs to break. I'm expecting pipes to burst when we had a freeze. I'm expecting that stuff, and it's just like, okay, been expecting this call. Let me call somebody, send them out there, take care of it, and it's over.
So this is the question. On your investment properties, do you use a home warranty?
No, I don't. So I know people who do.
Very curious if you waited out or thought it was worth it, or.
I've looked into it. There's definitely, so again, my properties have been, for the most part, turnkey, that were already renovated, where people already put a new roof and put a new AC recently and did all the I've been very picky, and I've bought places that were, that looked like they were going to be good at least for 5 years, right? And then of course you have some of those unexpected things that still happen, but yeah, I weighed it. I weighed the investment versus what I think it was going to pay off for it, and it just seems smarter for me to just hold that money for those down days. So now there are a couple properties that I've had for years that, I know some of those things are at their end of their life, water heaters and stuff like that. I just replaced one in one house, and that's the house I was thinking about putting an insurance policy on. So, it might have paid off on that one. So there are a couple houses that I'm looking at right now to potentially do that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think of that often in my head just with my own home, right? And I had an incident recently, and I used Goosehead. I mean, they're not my insurance company, right? They're a broker like me. I'm a broker, but I have two water heaters, right, in my attic, and one of them had a slow leak, and we got it replaced. And I have home warranty, so it took care of most of that. And then I was about to have the ceiling repaired, and I got busy and I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't, because like a couple of weeks later, the other one
Went out.
didn't slow leak, it burst.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like it was just flooding through my game room ceiling.
Right.
And it was a disaster, and they had to replace the whole ceiling. And
So did insurance take care of that too?
yeah,
Nice.
yeah. These guys were great. In fact, they have their own like claims team pre-filing that helps you with the insurance company and decide if it's worth it and how it might affect your premium and all these other things.
Nice.
So I can't say enough good things about Goosehead.
Nice.
I hate that I had to have a claim, but you know.
Right. Yeah.
So, and she had just, when I switched, she had added 2 types of water damage and cut my deductible in half. So it was very helpful that, you know,
Yeah. That's why,
You know,
that's
paying if I'd still been at 2% deductible, it would have all been out of my pocket.
right. And
Yeah.
there is there's a couple investors that I do represent. Well, it's a group. It's a couple partners that they have a bunch of houses in Houston, and what they do is that's their criteria, right? They're very high net worth people, and they don't have time to look at it. They have, very professional jobs, and what they'll do is when they buy a rental, they just buy all rentals. They put an insurance policy on it, and they give the number to the tenant, and just say, if there's anything ever goes wrong, you just call the insurance people, and if you need to call me. But they want to be out of the picture as much as possible. They are very hands off, and it's just like, just put an insurance policy on it every year, give the tenant the number to call, let them deal with it. So that's, and that's another way to look at it, is that really kind of streamlines things and makes it very passive. So
Sure.
it's a good thing for some of these people that, they don't have really time to look at it. They're higher net worth, and they don't care about just throwing an insurance policy on it, whether or not they think something's going to go wrong. Just put it on there and let it ride. So
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Home warranty would be good too.
that's what I mean, the home warranty
Oh
thing.
yeah. And exactly, and say, hey, you call them. There's going to be a deductible.
Yeah,
I
they
would
put it
just
on
make
there.
that part of the agreement,
They
right?
do.
The
They
rental agreement.
so I put it in the
that's
rental
on
agreements.
you. I'm paying the monthly for the.
Yeah, of course there's like some things that won't, but we put that in the rental agreements now, that they will pay the $75 deductible for them to come out each time. And I think that kind of neglects these people from calling on every little thing too. So we put that in there. It's kind of one of these things I'm seeing more and more often now, where people put that in there and then just let the tenant deal with it. So
Sure.
yeah,
It's great. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
no, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Good show. I learned a lot. I'm more interested than ever with working with you. So.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm ready when you are. I mean, like I said, whether it's Airbnb stuff, rentals, flips, whatever you want to do, we'll put some pen to paper and come up with a game plan.
So if anybody out there listening is interested in working with you at any level, right? Buying, selling, getting into investing, how would they reach you?
Instagram, my Instagram tag is chriscase_real estate _HTX, as in Houston, Texas, 281-352-7744. It's my phone number. You can call me, text me. That's probably about it. Facebook, if you Google me, Chris Case Real Estate in Houston, I'll pop up. So Google seems to be the easiest nowadays. Chris Case Real Estate. Just put that in. You'll see my information. You'll see emails, phone numbers, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. Reach out to me, and I'm happy to help anybody. So whether it's, and even if it's not investing stuff, so your retail, buying and selling new homes, whatever, all real estate related. So
Awesome.
anything and everything.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. That wraps up another episode of Texas Real Estate Roadshow, and we'll see you next week.